Hello, I'm Dylan.
I'm Keon.
This is Trust Your Doctor, that podcast that's a council podcast, because this week we watched, Fear Her,
Written by Matthew Graham.
directed by Euros, I still don't know how to pronounce his first name, Lynn.
And aired on June 24th, 2006. So another opportunity to get in contact with Euros Lynn and ask him how to pronounce his name. I found him on Twitter, but I found a couple accounts and I just couldn't be bothered to figure out which one was his real account.
Should have just tweeted all of them. Just like group tweet like, hey guys, just wondering how do you pronounce your first name?
Will the real Euros Lynn please respond?
Will the real Euros Lynn please stand up?
Anyway, I think this is the first story written by Matthew Graham, right?
Yeah, and one of the only. Thankfully,
Not
I
surprised.
saw his name and I
Why?
was like, I'm pretty sure he wrote something else, but I can't remember what it was. So I went to his page, like, he wrote this one story like 3 seasons from now, and I'm like, oh, he wrote that story. Right, that story.
That story is in, like, it's a really bad story.
That story, and like, the first time I watched it, I was like, yeah, I mean, this was okay.
Huh.
It was like Satan Pit for kids.
What?
You'll see when we get there. You'll see when we get there. The entire point of that story is literally just to set up a quote-unquote big reveal that happens later in the season. But anyway.
Yeah, that was kind of the point of this story. If the final 3 minutes were any indication, no, actually, this story was just utter garbage, just irredeemable, terrible, just not a good episode.
I mean, like I said off recording, I did warn you that we were getting two of the worst Doctor Who stories ever made back to back.
Yeah, the thing is, like, last week was pretty bad, but you know, Love and Monsters, it had some redeeming qualities. You know, there were a couple actually legitimately funny moments, and yeah, I guess that's just it, just a couple legitimately funny moments. This was just terrible and just made me want to fall asleep.
And utterly inconsequential to everything in every way.
And I mean, not only that, because I mean, you can have a good story that's inconsequential to the overarching plot line,
Yes.
and that's absolutely fine. But this was it just made me want to turn off the episode. It was just that bad. I would have rather just been doing something else in total.
Yeah, typically I watch these on my computer, and typically since about the 7th Doctor, I've been trying to actually just pay attention to the episode without like multitasking. And this was the first episode that they kind of just broke me again, and I was just like, I can't just watch this. I have to be doing something else. I just cannot focus on only this. Because there was nothing to focus on.
It was basically the story felt like it could have been resolved in about 15 minutes, but they stretched it out over, you know, the typical 45-minute length.
Yeah, which included 10 minutes of like really fake drama at the end, but we'll get there. It begins with
a suburb.
Yeah, with like an old
The story
lady.
was clearly just shot on the cheap and probably just included as, I guess, the cheapest episode of the season.
Yeah, which is hilarious because this script replaced apparently a script by Stephen Fry, because the script by Stephen Fry was apparently too expensive to film. He's like a British TV show host / actor / comedian. He's like a pretty funny guy.
He's a jack of all trades, I guess you could say.
He's like an entertainer, I guess would be the term.
All right.
He's a pretty funny guy, in my opinion.
Probably. I mean, I don't know anything about the episode that he wrote, I guess, or that could have been, but probably would have been better than this.
Yeah, I don't actually know anything about it either. I just know that they didn't film it because apparently Russell T was like, that's too expensive.
Gotta film this serial shot in
on a literal shoestring budget for what? The reboot has gone back to its roots. Anyway, so it starts, we kind of got off track like immediately. It starts with an old lady in a suburb, and she's like,
it's 2012 and the London Olympics are going on.
Yeah. She's like, can you feel that?
I couldn't even be bothered to look this up because I just didn't care about this serial.
Yeah, the 2012 Olympics were in London.
All right. Yeah, I just had no desire to even do the minimum amount of research for this serial. Not that I do for this episode. Not that I do for any episode. But yeah, this episode just broke my spirit.
Yeah, by 2006, they knew that the 2012 Olympics were going to be in London. You typically know like 10 years in advance. Really hope LA doesn't win the Olympics.
It's okay. It won't, probably.
Anyway, the old lady's like, can you feel that? That evil presence that's around?
It's lurking in your yard.
Yeah, she like tells this guy to get her 2 kids inside, and he's like, but they're in the yard, like I can see them. And she's like, but that's when it wants to take them. That's when it likes them the most. You gotta get them inside. And the guy's like, you're just a crazy old lady. Let me just take you home.
But he looks back and one of the kids has disappeared.
Yeah, one of the kids just straight up vanishes. Meanwhile, there's like a girl in a nearby room drawing way faster than is humanly possible. And she's drawn the little kid that's escaped, and he like moves and like, I don't know, I think he tries to scream or something. The motion is like ill-defined.
She creepily looks out the window, and that's that.
And then you're immediately like, wow, I already hate this girl.
You're like, wow, I already know exactly what's going on in the first 30 seconds of the episode.
Yeah, so then we get the title sequence, then we get this super funny scene.
Okay, this was actually the best part of the episode, in my opinion. I mean, because it's just something that in like 800 something episodes you've never seen before, and you're like, yeah, that is something that could happen. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, okay, I'll give you that. That's fair. But like the TARDIS lands between these 2 garbage dumpsters, but it lands like, so the door opens and they can't get out because they walk into the garbage dumpster wall.
Yeah, there's not enough room for the Doctor to get out, basically, and he's just like, oh, the TARDIS dematerializes, and if I had known how awful the episode was going to be, I would have hoped that he would have just gone somewhere else.
You would have just turned off the episode then and been like, wow, the whole story was the Doctor landed, couldn't get out, and that was it. Should have just turned it off right there, to be honest, and pretended that was the whole adventure. But anyway, no, the Doctor rotates the TARDIS, and so begins the descent. The Doctor leaves the TARDIS with Rose. Rose is like being her new season 2 kind of annoying self.
I actually thought she wasn't that bad in this episode.
Actually, yeah, she was fine up until those 10 minutes of extension at the end where she was like moping about, super emotional and super sad the Doctor wasn't going back, and like, whatever.
Yeah, one thing that I've noticed that I've been doing, and I guess I haven't really put this into words, surprisingly. I feel like I just noticed it, but I also feel like it's been at the back of my mind, is that, in the classic series, there were always those companions who, like, didn't really have a character outside of the Doctor. Mm-hmm. Like, Jo, to an extent, in some of her stories. I'd say that's true. And a couple others, but feels like season 2 Rose is sort of treading on that a bit. Whereas season 1 Rose was an actual good character, in my opinion.
Yeah, season 2 Rose is a lot more focused on the fact that she loves the Doctor, question mark? Because that's still, like, ill-defined, and they've been, like, dancing around it. And this is why I hate when they do romance in Doctor Who, because they can't just do it
dance
well.
Around it.
Like, I think I'd be more okay with it if they just both came out and said it and then kissed each other and were, like, actually in love for the next 7 episodes, but they don't. Instead, they do this weird, like, they're sort of together, but, like, not really, and they're, like, maybe flirting with other people, and, like, is this an open relationship? I'm really confused.
Yeah, it's like an awkward teen romance, gotta get that teen audience.
Yeah, I heard someone describe it as, like, they're star-crossed lovers who can never be together. I'm like, yeah, but there's, like, way better ways to execute on that if that was what they were doing, like... That's not what came across for me at all, both times I've watched this season.
No, yeah, I kind of think that person is full of something, but anyway, they wind up in the suburb.
Yeah, amazing. They're like, wow, we were just in a suburb like 6 episodes ago, and now we're back in the suburb, and this suburb looks a lot like that other suburb, so... They're like walking around, and the Doctor is sniffing something. He's like, there's like evil presence here. I'm like, wow.
Yeah, I think this is brought up multiple times in the episode. I think it's the stench of...
metal. Rose says it smells like metal, yeah.
It wasn't... I mean, it smells like metal, but it's actually, I think, the smell of disappearing biomaterial or whatever the Doctor says later on.
Yeah.
They do like a Schrodinger's cat type of thing, which I guess was also kind of interesting. Maybe there were a couple interesting scenes in this. The cat walks in the box, and you're like, I guess it's decaying biomaterial. Oh, we'll get there.
And then the guy from before, whose kids were in the yard, because the Doctor's in that guy's yard, which is really small, by the way, and they were like playing soccer in it. And the guy's like, so what's your game? And the Doctor's like, snakes and ladders, question mark.
I don't even remember this part because this is where I started to tune out the dialogue. It was just that bad. I actually, right before I watched this, I watched Spacefall, episode 2 of Blake 7 for our Blake 7 podcast, Zenith, or Zenith, however you want to say it, which you should check out. And the dialogue in that was just so good, and that was just such a good episode, and then I turned on this.
Yeah, well, that's Chris Boucher for you. It's really not much going to compare to Chris Boucher, especially on the show. His stories were like the most snappily and well-written stories of the 70s.
I guess. Well, I don't know how much Boucher rewrote episode 2 because the earlier episodes in that season were more written by Terry Nation, but yeah, it's probably a lot of Boucher too.
I mean, Boucher said, this is like getting off topic, we'll talk about this on that podcast, but Boucher said that there wasn't a line of dialogue in that first season that Blake said that he hadn't cleaned up at some point.
Wasn't that for Avon rather than Blake?
Might have been, I don't know.
I think it was for Avon rather than Blake because Paul Darrow and Chris Boucher were like apparently best friends. But anyway, I think we just don't want to talk about this episode, so we're talking about that instead. Don't.
Keon described it as the massacre of the reboot before we started.
Well, now that I guess reflect on what I said 10 minutes ago, this and Love and Monsters, I guess, kind of constitute the massacre of the reboot. Because, both in season 2, in Love and Monsters, the Doctor doesn't really show up at all, kind of like the massacre.
Yeah. It's really boring and just there's no reason for you to watch it. There's a weird counterculture movement of people who like it unironically and try to convince everyone else that they're good. The usual. So the guy's like, what's your game? And the Doctor's like, I'm a policeman. The guy's like, we've had tons of policemen here already. Check out all these wanted posters. Yeah, because Rose points out all the missing posters, and the Doctor's like, that's weird.
Yeah.
They may just get into this argument in the street.
All the missing posters are from the last 3 days, which is pretty suspicious.
Yeah, because typically you don't have 3 kids go missing within 3 days of each other.
Typically you want to spread it out a little bit. Not put all of the disappearances all on one weekend. You want to have a good
spread.
Good spread. No.
Also, you don't want to commit more than one crime at once. So you want to make sure that you don't have one of the kids on you anymore. Anyway. No, yeah, but actually, if you're committing a crime, don't commit more than one crime at once. Criminal advice on Trust Your Doctor.
Anyway, yeah, they get into an argument.
There's a big argument in the street because the dad and the old lady are yelling at the street maintenance guy. We forgot to mention someone drives by in a Mini and the car dies.
Character.
This is another super consequential scene because the guy drives up in a Mini and it just dies, and the street worker's like, hey, I'll help you push your car to get it jump started, and they're pushing it, and Rose just stands there and looks at them for 2 minutes, and he's already pushing, and she's just watching with that typical Billy Piper open mouth sort of surprised look, and then after they've already pushed the car halfway, she's like, oh, do you guys want some help? And the guy's like, nah, I think we got it. And she's like, well, I'm gonna help you anyway.
Yeah, aren't you typically supposed to have one person in the car directing the car?
Yes.
Oh, well.
I think the driver gets back in the car because after Rose pushes it for all of 30 seconds, the car starts and they drive away. They fall over, and I thought for a second the car was going to have disappeared, and I was like, that would be kind of neat, but no, it just drives away.
Yeah, but I guess this pavement worker is a pretty...
The council worker. He works for a council.
Whatever. He's really into pavement. I guess he's a pretty nice guy. Just helping out random strangers. But anyway, we're introduced to him a little bit more here. Pretty awful character that actually detracted from my enjoyment of the episode.
He just really likes his pavement, man.
It was just really annoying how he just kept going on about the pavement and just I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think he does anything much right now because he just kind of he gets into the argument because they're like, these disappearances didn't start till you showed up, because apparently he explains that the council sent him out because they had a bunch of cars stopping and braking on that road, and the Olympic torch was supposed to come through, and they were worried. So he's fixing up the road because they don't really know why all the cars are stopping. And I don't think that's actually ever explained in the story, why the cars are all stopping. Now that I think about it.
Maybe she's making parts of the road disappear.
Yeah, I was to say maybe it's supposed to be connected to the girl in some way, but it's just not explained. So who
Yeah, I think this
cares?
character was just here to have someone to talk to, like in the beginning of the episode, because his role becomes less and less important as the episode goes on, and he was kind of just comic relief, which that's fine, whatever. You're not gonna bash comic relief characters, but
Yes,
he
you
wasn't.
are.
I'll bash comic relief characters that when the comedy doesn't land, like it completely didn't in this episode.
I don't even know if he was supposed to be comic relief. I think he was just there to just be annoying. Anyway, the doctor convinces everybody to stop talking. The old lady's like, I don't care who you are. Can you, like, just help us? And then
Yeah, that is what she says. But now that you put it like that, it's actually kind of funny, just like.
well, yeah, she delivers it in a super serious way, and I'm just kind of making a joke out of it. So, anyway, she asks him for help, and the doctor's like, yeah, I'll help. Then they just, like, walk around for a bit and, like, sniff things.
We get some scenes of the girl and her mom. And the girl's acting kind of suspicious. The mom goes into her room. She has drawings all over her room. And she kind of snappily and angrily replies to her mom. Her mom just says something inconsequential. So, yeah.
Yeah. And then they, like, go and this is when
Classic teen daughter.
This is when they see the cat. Well, Rose sees the cat go into the box and it disappears. There's, like, a behind-the-scenes featurette of David Tennant with the cat.
Probably more interesting than the episode as a whole.
Yeah. I remember because they had a really difficult time getting the cat to, like, actually cooperate and go in the box. The featurette was, like, them trying to get the cat to go in the box. And they see it disappear.
It goes in the box, and Rose is like, come here, kitty. And she looks in the box, and it's not there.
Oh, yeah, she says, like, hello, beautiful. And the doctor's like, thanks. I was toying with a back comb over. And the doctor's like, oh, you mean the cat?
But instead of the cat, we get the residual smell of
Metal.
disappeared biomaterial. Well, Rose says, like, smells like metal, and the doctor's like, no, it's actually the residual smell of disappeared biomaterial.
Yeah, so they
start walking through some alleys, walking through people's backyard type areas, totally unsuspicious there. And they get chased by a ball of graphite.
Well, Rose does. She, like, splits off from the doctor, and she goes up to the girl's house, and then the scribble monster busts out of the garage because Chloe, the name of the girl's Chloe, breaks her pencil and in anger just scribbles all over the paper, and then the scribble comes to life and just busts out and starts attacking Rose, and the doctor just runs up with the sonic screwdriver and, like, points it at the scribble monster, and then I don't really know what happens here because the doctor doesn't explain it, and everyone just kind of moves on.
It's pencil lead, it's graphite, so you can obviously just erase it.
Not that yet. The doctor, like, pointing the screwdriver at it and then it turning from an alive scribble monster into an obvious prop scribble monster.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, come to think of it, I guess Chloe can affect the real world and also trap people in the drawings as well.
Yeah, the doctor says that, like, after he sees the scribble monster, he's like, well, or after he sees Chloe's drawings, he's like, well, if taking drawings, like turning living creatures into drawings, maybe it works the other way, turning drawings into living things. That's before he learns what she is, and it makes sense. Anyway, so they take the scribble ball to the TARDIS, and the doctor, this is one of a couple scenes where they just go back to the TARDIS and do something inconsequential and leave the TARDIS.
Oh, God. Bringing back that classic Doctor Who filler scene.
They go to the TARDIS and they analyze it, and the doctor's like, no, it can't be. And he just pulls out a pencil, and then it's like a really, really crappy CG scene where he erases the scribble thing.
Yeah, pretty sure that's not how solid graphite works. I don't think you can just erase it.
And the doctor's like, it's graphite. And I'm like, have you ever tried erasing, like, a mechanical pencil lead?
But anyway, that's the least of this story's problems. Because now...
I don't even know.
I think what happens is the Doctor and Rose somehow, I don't know how, but somehow I think they figure out what's going on.
Well, they kind of just Rose goes, Rose goes, Rose goes knows. Rose is like, hey, there was that kid on the block who like everyone was scared of. I think we should go talk to her. And the doctor's like, wait, what kid? And she's like, you didn't see the one in the window staring creepily at us when we were arguing? The doctor's like, no, because I had my back to her. Rose is like, wow, okay, let's go talk to her. So they go and they like knock on the door and they're like, hey, can we see your kid? And the mom's like, nope. And the doctor's like, okay, bye.
Yeah, reverse psychology-ing the mom here. Just like, oh, wait, actually, yes, you can.
Yeah, and it works. For some reason.
I guess the mom knows. I think the mom was present when the doctor used a psychic paper to show everyone that he was a police officer, which is, I guess, why she trusts him, quote-unquote trusts him here, because I don't think she really trusts him yet.
Yeah, so they
The
go
mom
inside.
was the worst actor in this. You know, the mom and the daughter were pretty bad. The old woman and the man were actually pretty awful as well, but... you know,
I liked the old woman. She was, like, charming. I mean, she wasn't, like, great, but she was, like, charming.
The mom and the daughter were pretty bad, though.
Yeah, you know who else was also pretty bad? Was the announcer for the Olympic Games.
Actually, yeah, the council worker wasn't anything to write home about either. You know, they're all just pretty bad all around. Maybe it has something to do with this story being a replacement for another story.
Maybe it's something to do with this story being filmed on, like, no budget, and the actors are like, well, we're not being paid that much anyway.
Anyway, the mom gives some backstory, some vague backstory.
Yeah, this is when we get, like, just I don't know, like, 10 minutes of just solid info dumping. Because first the mom explains.
Yeah, she's like, well, my daughter's not actually a bad kid, but recently she's been acting up, you know, classic teen daughter. Doesn't really want me involved with anything she does, and she kind of just stays in her room and, you know, just does her own thing. Possibly has something to do with her abusive father who, I guess, left or...
Died?
Was it died?
It was died.
I was totally not even interested by the end of the story, so...
Yeah, because she mentions that he's been dead for a while, and then she also mentions later on that she thought all the problems were over when he crashed the car, and he wasn't coming home.
Okay, so it was a car crash.
Yeah.
I guess that has something to do with all the cars stopping on the road. I'm not sure what it has to do with it, but probably something.
Yeah, the story just, like, gets really dark on you. Where Chloe has been abused by her father. That's, like, not something Doctor Who's done before. And the story,
I mean, maybe not overtly. Maybe there was some covert or coded scenes of it. I couldn't tell you. I couldn't tell you where, but I think it's possible.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. This story is... it's, like, kind of a shame, really, because this story is, like, a pretty bad story and doesn't really deal with it. The, like, whole moral of the story at the end is, like, you should just get over it. Really? It's like, you should just turn to your family members and then just get over it together. That's, like, the moral of the story at the end, I feel.
Maybe, I guess, which, I mean, that's all right. Plus, I've always been of the opinion, I guess, that you can still enjoy a story whether you agree with the themes and ideas in the story or not. Yeah,
no, it doesn't, like, affect my enjoyment of the story. It's just, to me, kind of a shame that they didn't, like...
use that in a better story.
Yes! Because that's, like, a heavy topic that's, like, not really talked about and is actually, like, a problem. Like, child abuse.
Well, Doctor Who doesn't really get too in-depth on any of the ideas in general, but this story goes even less...
than normal?
It goes even less in-depth than normal, I guess. But anyway, I think they go and investigate Chloe's room now.
Yeah, they did. Well, no. No, what happens...
Oh, God.
What happens is actually the mom was like, let me just go check on her first because she might be sleeping or something. And the doctor's like, okay. But then that's when the mom goes off like, she's actually a good kid and starts explaining all these things. And then Rose is like, can I use your loo? And she's like, yeah. And then Rose doesn't use the loo and just goes upstairs and hides in a cupboard until Chloe comes out of her bedroom and then sneaks into Chloe's bedroom.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
And the doctor meets Chloe when Chloe comes downstairs and like just drinks milk. And the doctor's like, hey, I'm the doctor. And she's like, I don't care who you are. I'm busy. And the doctor's like, but I want to know what you're drawing. Like, I can't draw. I can only draw stick figures. And Chloe's like, I'm working on something. Leave me alone.
I'm busy.
And then Rose screams, and the doctor's like, that's a good cue to not leave you alone.
Yeah, because Rose sees, I don't know if we, as the viewer, see it yet, but what she basically sees is in the closet, Chloe has put up some horrific drawings of her
dad.
father.
We actually,
Which
this is...
actually, yeah, begs the question, did the alien thing have anything to do with her dad's death?
Maybe, I don't
Might
know.
have, yeah, now that I think of it. I really don't know. That could be interesting, I guess, but doesn't really save the story.
No, it doesn't even... Not in the same state as saving the story. This is actually the only time we actually see the dad drawing.
Yeah.
We see it right now, and for the rest of the story, it's represented by like a red spotlight someone found in the BBC prop department.
Oh, God.
It's kind of like the blue lights in one of the stories last season. I remember mentioning it, but I don't remember what story it was now.
Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about, but whatever.
It was like last season, there was a monster represented by just blue lights off screen. Really branching out here. First it was blue, now it's red. What's next? Green.
Whoa, gotta scale it back a little bit. Can't progress too far just in the span of a season. I'm gonna save green for season 4 or 5.
Okay, yeah, it's fair. Anyway,
yeah.
The doctor's like, wow, what's going on here? Got a lot of drawings here. Interesting stuff. Isn't
this the kid who just disappeared? No. I don't think he really calls it out.
They leave, I think. I think the mom kicks him out.
Yeah, they start making these insinuating comments about how Chloe is trapping people in drawings, and the mom is like, that's ridiculous. Get out.
Well, actually, yeah, they don't leave, but the mom's like trying to kick him out, and then the doctor's like, you know we're right, don't you? You're just scared of her. You've seen the drawings move out of the corner of the eye. You're just trying to ignore it, aren't you? She's like, get out, and he's like, yeah, you have, haven't you? It's true, right? And she's like, yeah, okay, fine, you're right. Now the doctor like does his like psychic thing. He like reads their mind, like in the girl in the fireplace. And he's like,
oh, it's an alien. The cause of most of my problems.
The cause of all of my problems, except that time I landed in Rome and I burned it down.
And Black Orchid, can't forget Black Orchid.
And the Highlanders, I guess.
Yeah.
A couple of historicals. Reign of Terror.
The Aztecs.
The massacre. Actually, the doctor didn't really have any problems in the massacre. That was just all Steven.
Yeah, the doctor was kind of just off doing his own thing, didn't really encounter any hardship in that story.
Anyway, yeah, the doctor, starts talking with the alien inside of Chloe. I don't know how he, gets the alien to speak and not Chloe.
Especially since the alien just looks like a little tapestry.
A tapestry? More like a tadpole with a flower petal for a head.
Kind of, I guess.
Anyway, so the alien's talking, and this is where we continue the info dump, because the alien's like, I come from a species, and the doctor then explains that the species is super, 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 super empathetic, and cares about each other so much that they just actually physically can't be without each other, otherwise they start just breaking down and dying. And
which is why Chloe has been drawing quote-unquote friends into her pictures. That's what she's been saying this entire time. Looks like this person needs a friend.
Yeah.
She gives the boy who disappeared at the beginning, the cat. This is the cat that disappeared.
And apparently the species, when the mother is dying or is threatened, she ejects thousands of little tiny seed pod things that just go flying through space together until they find somewhere to land together. But then a solar flare knocked just this alien's pod off course and it landed on Earth, and now it's alone because
it's used to having 15,000 friends, and now it has 0.
And also, apparently, these aliens, when they're traveling in the pods, it's really boring because they travel for thousands of years, because apparently this alien's journey started hundreds of thousands of years ago before humans were even a thing, and so apparently they have the ability to create they just can create anything, literally anything. They create their own fictional worlds when they're flying through space, and they play in them, and they're basically just super OP when you come to think about it.
I guess. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I guess that's just interesting.
And the Doctor's
I don't know, the fictional worlds thing is kind of cool. Might have something to do with the metafictional concepts or whatever, but again, they don't really go into it too much. I'm sure there's more you could read into it, but the story overall was just so bad that I'm not going to, nor am I ever going to watch this again, hopefully.
I'm sure the story is in that book Hating to Love, which is like trying to reevaluate Doctor Who stories that most people hated, but that a select few didn't.
Like the Armageddon factor.
Like Kill the Moon a couple seasons from now. That might be my least favorite episode of the reboot ever, but we're not there yet. Yeah, so then the Doctor's like, well, she's probably using her, like, ionic powers to trap the kids in the drawings.
Ionic powers?
It was something with an I.
Oh, you mean Ionic? Because the mom creature was the cause of all of it? No, I don't know.
That was a stretch. Then the Doctor's like, if we can, like, trace her pod, then we can, like, do a thing. He doesn't really explain what the thing they're doing is. And it doesn't matter because they trace the pod. And the Doctor's like, hey, it's right there, right in the middle of the road. It was the hottest thing. And it needed heat, so it searched out the hottest thing, and that was the pavement. And then he, like, builds this little orb thing, and then it doesn't really matter what the orb thing does, because as soon as he leaves the TARDIS, him and the TARDIS get captured because Chloe just draws them into a drawing. Now it's just Rose, and it's up to Rose to save the day. She's about to do the biggest jerk move you could ever think of to the poor council worker, which is she just tears up his newly laid road.
Yeah, she just goes and gets a council axe and starts tearing up the council pavement.
Yeah, she like walks up to the van, and the guy's like, hey, you can't go in there, that's a council van. And then she pulls out a pickaxe, like, hey, that's a council pickaxe, you can't use that. And then she starts tearing up the road. She's like, hey, you can't use that council pickaxe from that council van to tear up that council road, I'm reporting you to the council. It's like, does the council have any real power here? She should just be like, I am the council. Palpatine. So it's treason then. Not gonna let me tear up my pavement.
You were the chosen one.
You were meant to make the pavement, not tear it up. Not join it.
Oh, God. Yeah, I really have to unfollow that prequel memes Twitter page. They're just clogging up my feed, to be honest. But
prequel memes are solid.
No. I actually like the prequels, so I don't agree with making fun of them. No, I do. I do. Yeah, we really don't want to talk about this episode, do we?
No, not at all.
I actually forget what happens next. I was totally zoned out at this point.
I was like, I actually had my face buried in my hands because I was like, how did this actually make it to screen?
I think that's something we said about Love and Monsters, but I think this is a bigger case of how did this actually make it to screen.
Yeah, it made it to screen because
guess.
Stephen Fry's script was too expensive. Damn it, Stephen. Damn it. She like takes the pod up to the house. She's like, I don't really know what I'm doing because the Doctor was going to do something with this, but like, here's your pod. And Chloe's like, that pod is dead. There's nothing in it. And then they're like watching the TV feed of the Olympics, and Chloe Webb is also watching it, and she just captures everybody in the stadium.
Yeah, so Chloe has live broadcast, I guess, TV streaming to her laptop, and this is, I guess it's 2012, all right, I was going to say it's like 2006, so, pretty impressive there.
No, it's 2012.
It's 2012,
Remember, this is mildly in the future.
Yeah.
In the past for us now.
Yeah, she draws in the entire crowd.
This is when we get the, like, also bad actor announcer, because he's like, oh no, everybody's just disappeared. This is such a tragedy, everybody. The whole stadium is just completely empty. There's just nobody there. And then he's like, we're going to cut over, Bob, can we cut over to you? And they cut over to 2 empty chairs. Like, this is my favorite line in the whole story because he just delivers it so badly, which made it so funny because he's like, oh no, not you too, Bob.
God. Maybe this guy was actually acting well, and he was playing the actor, or sorry, the announcer,
And the announcer's just awful.
who's just completely over life itself. He just doesn't give two darns about anyone or anything.
So when they all disappear, Rose runs up to Chloe's room and is like, Chloe, get in the pod, you can go home. She's like, the pod is dead. And then she's like, oh man, I really don't know what to do.
The pod, little prop thing, I guess, is probably the best prop in the entire story.
Well, the Olympic torch is pretty good. Because the Olympic torch design hadn't been... Yeah, we do, because the Doctor picks it up later on.
You don't see it that closely, though. You more see it just on a
There's like a zoomed-in shot of it on the ground before the Doctor picks it up.
Like I said, I wasn't really paying attention.
Anyway, yeah, so she's like, I don't know what to do with this pod. And then she like looks at the drawing of the Doctor, and he's like, somehow, without explanation, created an Olympic torch in the drawing.
And he's like, you're transported to another world when you're in the drawing, I guess, because people can still move in the drawings, but
yeah, they can move, but they can't create things. Is like...
Yeah, it might also have to do with the sort of metafictional concepts that this story just barely touches on. That, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, so then Rose is like, oh, the Olympic torch. And then conveniently, right at that moment, super unenthused announcer's like, the torch, it's not just a beacon of fire anymore. It's a beacon of hope and love and excitement, and it's all of London. And it's a beacon. It's just a beacon. Rose, it's a beacon. Rose, this is what you need to do. Rose is like, wow, it's a beacon. I guess I'm going to take this pod to the beacon of hope and love and life.
Yeah.
So she like runs outside.
The torch is none of those things. It's actually just a torch. Well, maybe not in the context of the story, but
well, it's like they're using the fact that the torch is like more than a torch. It's like a symbol for what the Olympics represents, which is supposed to be like coming together and having fun and love and hope. But in reality, it's just a competition where people want to win. So,
yeah, more so. I mean, the games themselves, but also the countries and cities vying for the position of getting the torch.
Yeah, like once upon a time, the Olympics might have been like actually about coming together, just in the spirit of having fun and being together.
You know, inter-country relationships, peace.
Yeah, but now it's just...
But now it's almost the exact opposite of that.
Yeah. At least we have Eurovision.
That's the overall moral of this story, is that Eurovision is far better and more entertaining than the Olympics.
I feel like the Winter Olympics are still kind of like that, though, because like barely anybody watches the Winter Olympics.
Well, just a larger sample of good people involved in the Winter Olympics.
Yes. Hey, the Winter Olympics are this year.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a big Olympics fan, obviously, but the Winter Olympics do have sort of a more peaceful, down to earth, and just fun feel about them.
Yeah, especially when you're Jamaican, you have a bobsled.
But no, this is the I guess decidedly by this podcast episode awful Summer Olympics. You couldn't have set this in winter, could you have?
You heard it here first, folks. Summer Olympics worse than the Winter Olympics. Plus, the Winter Olympics have figure skating, so that's the best sport.
I'm not really into
figure skating,
but whatever.
Figure skating is awesome. Anyway,
the Doctor.
No, Rose is not allowed to get too close to the torch, so she just. This scene, she's like, fly, little pod, and she just like throws it in the air, and it just works.
This is where you see, I guess the... No, actually, no, it's not. I was going to say this is where you see the alien design, but that's in like a minute.
Well, you also see it briefly earlier, because there's like when Chloe's explaining what happened.
Oh yeah, you see
like a flashback.
Zip into her mouth. Creepily.
Yum! Anyway, the pod, like, charges up, and the guy, like... Alright, just hang out for a second. If the guy carrying the torch, like, stumbles for a second, and you're like, oh, okay, he's just, like, stumbled because the pod is, like, absorbing all the love from all the people.
One job, man.
But then, like, later on, near the end of the story, the announcer's like, we saw him get hit by, like, what we thought was, like, a flash of lightning earlier today when he stumbled. And I was like, what? What? They couldn't even bother to CG in, like, a flash of lightning here? Or anything to make that accurate later on. Maybe the announcer's just making it up at this point.
Announcer, best character in this. Then again, you know, you always try to frame things that are outside your realm of experience into things that you know. So it actually makes sense that the announcer would mention, like, no, I'm actually just damage controlling this awful little bit here, but you know, maybe.
Anyway, the rose. Everybody comes back.
Is this the first instance of the rose?
No, we've done it before.
All right.
Yeah, so everybody comes back. The alien
they all come back.
Leaves. Chloe's like, I love you, Chloe Webber. And leaves.
Yeah, and sort of just flies away, I guess. I guess presumably to go be with its kind.
Yeah. And this is the point where I was like, wonder how much time is left. Oh my god, it's like 13 more minutes.
Yeah, this is like the second Peladon story whose name I always forget.
Monster, I think. I think Curse is the first one.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, this is like that story levels of 10 minutes left and we don't know how to fill it.
Yeah,
Garbage.
Because the doctor just doesn't come back and Rose is like all mopey and sad, like, oh man, who's gonna hold his hand now? Doctor's alone. And
my only character and personality is just my relationship with the doctor. What am I gonna do? I guess there's also the question of how she would get home.
Yeah, she's like 6 years into her future at this point.
She could just wait it out.
Yeah, probably. Anyway, the street worker's like, I'm sure he's just gone somewhere. And then Rose is like, oh shoot, everybody comes back and everybody's come to life. That means, oh no. And then Chloe's dad comes to life in the closet and is like, I'm coming, Chloe, I'm coming. But all you see is like red flashing light.
Yeah, this could have actually been a cool thing where... you know, it's kind of interesting. We're like, oh wait, everyone in the drawings came back. That means that guy who shouldn't have been in the drawings, or, well, the pretty bad guy who was in the drawings, I guess, is back now. But the way they execute it is just so awful, where it's just a flashing red light off screen and, you know, some pretty awful sound effects. And Chloe and her mom just sort of cowering, I guess, in a corner.
We forgot to mention that the reason why Rose was like so rushed about getting to the Olympic torch is because Chloe was like, I'm going to take everybody on Earth, and was drawing a picture of the Earth on the wall.
Yeah, really upping the stakes there with that picture of Earth.
Her mom like took away all her pencils twice, and she keeps just finding more in her room, so that's great.
Yeah, there was one really clever hiding place where she had some pencils, but I forgot what it was.
It was in the doll. She took the doll's head off.
Oh, yeah.
And they were inside the doll. Anyway, yeah, so then it like locks the door and it's coming down the staircase towards Chloe and her mom. And there was like a scene earlier where Rose like really accusatorily says to Chloe's mom, like, well, maybe that's why she feels so alone, is because you didn't want to talk about it.
Freaking Rose.
And so that comes back here, I guess, because the mom's like, you're never going to be alone again, Chloe, I'm here for you. And they're like,
they basically
start singing.
Oh, right. They start singing the Kookaburra song, which was which was something Chloe was singing at the beginning of the story.
And which her mom sings.
Like their song.
Yeah, because her mom sings it to her when she's having a nightmare.
Yeah. They basically, in this scene, turn, you know, what could have been, I guess, sort of an interesting part of the story with an abusive father, which, like we said, Doctor Who's never really dealt with, at least overtly. They sort of just turn it into a fee-fi-fo-fum style giant coming down the stairs to get him.
Yeah. I mean, Doctor Who's like never been known for dealing with super heavy topics in the most tactful way.
But this is just an outlier in how awful it just does it.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much.
Awful is in like not dealing with the topipic in an interesting way, and just
In like a
awful in how
direct
it's
way.
completely awful just in how it's shot, how it looks, just everything.
Can you imagine being Rosalind, being the director for this, like getting the budget for the story and then reading the script and being like, ah, shoot.
Yeah, I mean, this is actually, since you bring up Euros Lynn, this is actually a really poor offering from him. You know, he's not really been a standout bad director in the well, the past, but I mean recently, because he's directed most recent stories as far as when this story aired. But I guess it's just due to budget.
Yeah.
Because
it really does feel like this story was the story this season that they made with just whatever budget was left over. And it was one of the last stories produced, because the only story produced after this, I think, was Satan Pit and the Impossible Planet, and they probably held over most of the budget for that. So it really does feel like this story was kind of this, just got the scraps of the season.
Yeah, which I guess might be a good thing in some ways, because would a bigger budget really improve the story? Well, it would improve the story, but would it really make this a good story? I don't think so.
No, I don't think so either. But on the other hand, I think it hurts the story that it was so obviously just an afterthought. Like, I think, well, not necessarily this story. I think it hurts Doctor Who that there's a story that's obviously the budgetary afterthought. I think even if a story has low budget, they should maybe take some budget from other stories, just enough to make it so that it doesn't look like it's drastically lower budget than the rest of the season, just to make the season feel a little more consistent, I think. I don't know, that's just what I feel.
Also, I mean, I guess you also have to operate under the assumption that, like, you know, the story is written without regard to budget, and they just they use their budget to create the written story, which I guess in some cases might be true, but you know, it's television writing, so obviously budget is something you should have in mind when writing the story and including things that you can actually do.
Yeah.
And if I don't know if what I'm trying to say is coming across or if it's even right, but yeah.
Yeah, I think maybe it comes down to, I don't think we know the answer to this. I don't know because if they're allocating budget before the stories are written, then I think it's easier for the writer.
Probably the best course of action for TV.
That's what I was going to say. I think they should allocate the budget before it's written, so the writer knows what they're working with. It's possible that maybe, this story seems to indicate that they were allocating budget after the scripts were written and putting the budget mostly in the scripts that needed it, rather than like, I guess, making the lower budget ones just better scripts that require a higher budget, and then maybe toning back the higher budget ones to try equalize it a bit.
Well, as Avon says in Spacefall, it all comes down to money.
It really does. We've talked about it on the show before. Like, Doctor Who is predominantly a money thing. All of television is just a money thing. Yeah,
just is.
Anyway, the story, like, Rose was watching the TV and the guy carrying the Olympic torch like falls over, and like the Doctor just runs up, picks up the torch, and runs it into the stadium, and everyone just lets him.
Yeah, and the announcer's like, "Well, this is the hero we needed, I guess." You know, he's sort of I think the announcer actually does bring it up. It's like he's like, it looks like an unrelated person has grabbed the torch. Looks like nobody's stopping him. He's running up the steps. Yeah.
Then he says that whole beacon line again about it being a beacon of hope and love for the world. Then the Doctor lights the torch, and then the spaceship flies away, lights the fire, and then the spaceship flies away. And then the Doctor meets up with Rose again. Rose is like, "So tell me about the 2012 Olympics, like what goes on?" The Doctor's like, "Papua New Guinea really surprises everyone in the shot put." She's like, "You're kidding, right?" And he's like, "Just wait and see. Like, honestly, just wait and see." But she'll never get to wait and see because
of that setup for the next
because of the ominous
story.
She dies in battle thing that was set up in Impossible Planet and Satan Pit.
And that they bring up here in the last 30 seconds of the episode.
Yeah, the Doctor all of a sudden is like, "I feel like something bad's coming. Something real bad's coming." And then we get another preview that spoils.
Yep. Completely spoils it. I didn't know that the Cybermen were part of the next story.
There's actually
Until watching this, of course.
There is in the preview for next week another spoiler for someone or something else that returns.
Jackie, no.
But you only recognize the spoiler if you have a really good memory.
Huh. Well, I don't, and I didn't recognize it, so I guess that's good.
Next week, I think I'll explain what it was if you haven't figured it out already when you watch it. But I don't want to spoil it now.
Is it Mickey? Watch it just be Mickey. Anyway, yeah, I think the big problem with this is that it reveals the Cybermen. I had no idea that the Cybermen were coming back, but they are.
This is like one of the biggest. This is like one of the most spoilery previews we've ever seen, because we like see the inside of Torchwood. Torchwood captures the Doctor. The Doctor mentions that like another universe is like crashing into the main one. The Cybermen show up.
I don't know if this is just me, but this preview also felt about double the length of the normal preview.
Yeah, no, I think it was.
Freaking
and
great.
It's got like a voiceover from Billie Piper as Rose Tyler speaking about how like this is the final story she'll ever tell, like really melodramatic.
Really spoiling how she goes out, but anyway. Whatever.
Anyway, fear her. You know what? I'm just so flabbergasted that an episode of a television show can just be so completely and utterly nonsense.
Yeah, it was truly sleep-inducing. People use the term sleep-inducing a lot. You know, they just throw it out there. They're not very careful with it. They're like, if someone doesn't like something, they're like, oh, this was sleep-inducing. No, this really was sleep-inducing.
Yeah, no, I watched this at like 9:30 at night, and honest to God, wanted to just go to bed and pass out halfway through the episode. I mean, the only thing that was keeping me awake was the fact that I was multitasking, and even then...
Yeah, there really just is not one single component of this was enjoyable. You know, the acting, the special, the visuals, I guess. No real interesting music, except I think the Bad Wolf theme plays like once. And the story feels like it could have been resolved in 15 minutes, but it was stretched out over 45.
That's because it really could have been resolved in 15 minutes, maybe even 10 if they were working like tooth and claw level speed.
Yeah, they obviously added characters to I guess pad it out, like the council guy, who weren't really even interesting or just fun to watch in any way. Just overall the worst of the reboot so far. You know, yeah. I mean, it would be hard to get worse than this, in my opinion. But you know,
honestly, I think Kill the Moon comes pretty goddamn close.
Oh God.
Kill the Moon also, out of all these bad stories, has like the biggest group of people who actually like it unironically, and I just don't understand. I just don't get it. Maybe the story's just not for me, but I don't get it.
Well, you know, maybe I'll end up liking that one. I've liked some pretty disliked stories before, and Armageddon Factor is my favorite Doctor Who story of all time, so...
Yeah, I'm kind of amazed that you like didn't like either of these two stories. I was wondering before we went into them, I was like, I wonder if Keon's going to somehow come in one day and be like, man, that story was awesome. And I'm just going to have to be like, man. Yeah, for once, we actually went with public opinion here. These two stories suck. That's just all I have to say about them. Anything else?
Nope, that's it. I'm glad we're moving on from this, from Fear and Love and Monsters.
We're almost done with the season. We'll be done next week. You can email us at thedoctor@decadavevegetable.com. Questions, comments, concerns, angry rants, love letters, your thoughts on Fear, the working titles for the story where Chloe Weber destroys the world, so...
Just glad they changed that, because it's a big fat lie. She doesn't end up destroying the world.
And you can find us on Apple Podcasts and Google Play at Trust Your Doctor, and you can find us on YouTube at Decorative Vegetable, because we've consolidated our YouTube channels into one. But if you're already subscribed to the Trust Your Doctor YouTube channel, then you should still be subscribed, because we just renamed the Trust Your Doctor one. Leave a rating if you like the show.
Check us out on Facebook, Trust Your Doctor. Like us on Facebook. Also check us out on Twitter at TYD Podcast, and follow us on Twitter. And next time we're watching Army of Ghosts and Doomsday. But until then, the end.